So we are talking about the gut brain today. And what I want to do is I'm going to actually read you a bit of an article that I wrote for Huffington Post, mainly because when you're writing for somebody else, you can write lots of nice long words, which is what I did. And I also wrote a lot of long words from a book, You Do Know, Learning to Act on Intuition Instantly. Now, I've mentioned before that I was a professional psychic. And that word never sat right with me because I never did future predictions. I didn't believe in them. And I kind of thought, okay, so what do I need to find out here? So I went on a bit of a journey. I sold my place in London and I moved to San Francisco and started studying everything that I could about parapsychology, about how the brain works, all of that stuff. But when I got to that idea about the gut instinct, because we always describe it as a gut instinct, and that's because, you know, when we experimented on Monday with the water and the whatever undrinkable thing was that you had in the other hand, your body kind of goes towards something which feels heart-led, and we even discuss it as being heart-led, or it goes away, which we discuss as kind of, oh, I had a gut reaction then. Or we might even say, in my grandmother's generation, oh, I can feel it in me waters, he's not a good one, she's not right. So in a way, when we have that, we kind of have that capacity to be able to explain that it's in the gut. But for many of us, it's just come across as being some kind of like, almost like wishy-washy, what you might call, you know, female or mother's intuition. It wasn't, because it wasn't doing the fixing, sorting and achieving, it was receiving. It was always seen as a female thing rather than a male thing, which is interesting, isn't it? But actually, I think it's just as equal that men can be as highly intuitive. They're just not necessarily as highly vocal about the things that they perceive and the things that they pick up. And lots of people, you know, Richard Branson, you know, Steve Jobs, and a whole load of high top CEOs from huge companies said it on Radio 4 on a business program as well. So, you know, I think that there is this thing, but it's really misunderstood as to what the gut instinct knows. So I'm just going to read this from my article. Embedded in the lining of the intestines is the electric nervous system, with hundreds and millions of neurons. This always makes me think of Dr. David Hamilton when he talks about neurons, protons and croutons. Anyway, moving on quickly. With hundreds of millions of newtons, 1,000th the number in your brain. So wait, let's just go back on that. So the electric nervous system has hundreds of millions of neurons, 1,000th the number in your brain. So if there's neurons in your gut, there is an actual brain in your gut. Gut neurons communicate with the brain through the vagus nerve, which runs through the base of the brain to the chest and abdomen. But actually, since I wrote that article, I've actually discovered that actually your vagus nerve runs far wider than that throughout your body. A friend of mine, he was out for a run, and while he was out for a run, he got up really early, couldn't sleep, so he's out for a run at kind of like 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's seriously early for anyone. And he bumped into a man, and there's a very slight narrow pathway just before you start running up a hill in the woods in where I live. And he clocked this guy, and they caught eyes. And as they were going through this narrow pathway, this man stepped aside. And strangely, in that moment, he had a real burst of energy fill his body. And he ran up the hill. Sounds like a Kate Bush song, running up that hill. He ran up the hill with this huge burst of energy from out of nowhere, as if he was running away from a predator. And then when he got to the top of the hill and thought about the man he'd seen at the bottom of the hill, he realised that that man was his father. Now, he hadn't seen his father since he was 13 years old, and there are many reasons for that. I'm sure that you can guess some of them. His gut recognised his dad before the brain in his head. And how do we know it was his gut? Because the gut triggered a fight or flight response. It put blood into the arms and legs, which gave him a surge of energy to be able to run up that hill. Now, the interesting thing about the vagus nerve is it can take up to half an hour for something that the gut understands for it to reach your right hemisphere of the brain, and therefore the left hemisphere of the brain to put it into words, to go, hang on, I think that was my dad. Weird. So it can take a little bit of a while. So the reason being, I mean, and it's okay that it takes a while, because if you kind of like went, oh, I think that there's a saber-toothed cat about to attack me, that thought is just, it just takes too long. It's easier to put the blood into your arms and legs for the fight or flight response. Because if you put it into your brain as a thought, it's more likely to create the freeze response. Now, interestingly, there's 5 F's in total, and one of them's rude. No, not that rude. It's fornicate. So there's food, which is why we overeat after when we're in stressful situations, because when we eat, we're fueling the body for anything that we need to fight or run away from. Then there's freeze. So if your brain sees it and can recognize it, the chances are you're just going to kind of be dead in your tracks, just stop like a rabbit in headlights. And then there's also the fight, so you can get into a big old scrap. And then there's the run away, so the freeze. Fornicate, well, I'm just going to put it out there, and that explains the baby boom after the war. So there's different things that the gut does, but its primal response is to keep you the hell alive. That's what it's there for. So it will only look for the things that it is frightened of. It will look for harm. And a question that came up on the classes, why, I think it was Deanna, but why are we hardwired? Or was it Catherine? Anyway, why are we hardwired to look for things that we don't like? You know, why are we hardwired to look for doom and gloom? And that becomes from the gut. So when everyone talks about intuition, they talk about their gut reaction, because the gut reaction is the one that we're really hardwired for, because we're hardwired for survival. So the gut reaction will always be the thing that says, hell no, avoid. So then when it comes to the intuition that we're all striving for, is the, you know, it's the la hallelujah, like I have come up with eureka, you know, something really amazing. It's the £1 million idea. That's what we want. Come on, intuition, give me the £1 million idea. Give me the thing that's going to set me free, you know, so that we spend ages wanting our intuition to guide me to the one, to guide me to the lottery numbers. But we know, we've discussed that, we can't do that. So you want your intuition to guide you to things that is going to make your life just super freaking juicy, sweetie, wonderful. That's what we really want. You know, yes, it's good to have things to avoid, but then you just end up with a very narrow life. What we want is the heart that says, this is it. This is the relationship. This is the friendship. This is the person. This is the thing. This is the job. This is the person to hire, and this is the £1 million idea. Go and enjoy yourself. And we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But in the meantime, let's go back to the gut. So the gut can do all sorts of things. However, it does rely on your energy system. So we've already talked about the yellow of the solar plexus, and looking at that as being the yellow-bellied coward. You know, so that the solar plexus can frisk people for information and comes back and says whether or not somebody is dangerous or not. What it does with the information is it brings it into the sacral chakra, which is the chakra below. Now, I think that this could just be me. I might have just made this up, but God damn it, I think I'm right. There is that line of extra, what shall we call it? Tissue that is above the line of your belt. God, it's hard to get rid of. And don't say it's a middle-aged thing, because I think I have always had that. Even when I was super skinny, you could see my ribs. I think I've always had it. That lining that goes across your sacral chakra is almost as if we don't want to pick up too much negative energy in the world. So we protect it with extra tissue. So maybe instead of going on a diet, all we need to do is go, I've got this, I'm safe in the world, turn off the solar plexus, don't care, not worried about saber-toothed cats. Maybe we should all just walk around like massively armoured up, but thin, but then you won't be able to see it because we're covered in armor. That doesn't work either. Anyway, so the solar plexus brings this information into the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra takes the energy of that information into the gut. So that might mean that when you're walking down the street, you suddenly feel that you need to cross the road. And then, you know, you go, oh, I need to cross the road. And the brain in your head goes, hang on, if you cross the road, you're going to have to cross back. That's silly. And then you don't cross the road and somebody steps out from somewhere and mugs you, you know, that kind of thing. It used to be predators. It used to be animals that wanted to eat us that we could sense before they were there. And for those of you who may have an extremely active solar plexus or going through a time of extreme stress, you may also find that you get déjà vu moments more regularly. Because I really believe that the solar plexus can always jump forward in time, not by much, but just by a couple of seconds, just a sort of a sense of something coming. And when I say jump forward in time, it's not exactly that. But if you are completely aware of your surroundings, you can predict what's going to happen. So you have a fight or flight response long before you would connect with it. However, is it that, or is it the fact that it takes the vagus nerve time for it to acknowledge in the head? So you may kind of have this sense of déjà vu, but is that actually because the vagus nerve is slower than, anyway, I'm confusing you and actually myself. So when we get that reaction, that tells us something about who, what, when, however we need to avoid. And I have had this conversation with so many people. I had this conversation yesterday. When I first met this person, I had a really negative gut instinct about them. But then they did this or said this or did that, or I looked at the amount of money they have, or what they were offering me sounded amazing, and I bypassed it, only to find that that has been a huge mistake in their life. And ease is one of the reasons why we do that. Politeness is another. You know, we don't want to be rude. And it's really difficult when somebody says, oh, why don't you want to work with me? To say, I got a really bad gut instinct about you, because that holds no weight in our society. You know, this gets me. Oh, but you know, it really is a bigger faux pas to call someone a liar than it is to be one. And I practice radical honesty, which doesn't always bode well for me, I'll be honest. I practice it as much as I can, but I also practice kindness more. So my radical honesty is never unkind, because I think honesty is kindness. I think if you don't tell somebody something, it's not kind. And I think that you're allowing an abuser to carry on abusing if you don't point out the abuse to them, because sometimes they don't know and they don't mean it. And I also think that you're actually abusing the abuser if you allow the abuse to carry on, because you're not helping them, you're not teaching them, you're being an actor in the story of abuse, which means that you are playing a part. And I think when you stop playing the parts that are not authentic to you, your life becomes liberated. And the gut has such a great part to play in the liberation of dishonesty in your life, so that you can become the most authentic version of yourself. And believe me when I say this, it isn't easy to be authentic. When people go, oh yeah, like, I just don't really feel like, you know, you need to be really authentic. All right, then good luck with that, because authenticity isn't always about saying, I'm a really incredible person, I have self-love. Authenticity isn't about vulnerability or saying, I suffer with mental health issues. It's not about that. It's about how we show up in the world to be advocates for truth in every conversation. What? When I say that, let the impact of that really land, because that is not easy. And believe me, you may find yourself in a number of different jobs until you become self-employed. So boss, here's another thing I wanted to point out. No. So just go careful. Sometimes you have to pick your battles. And sometimes there's ways of being authentically honest that doesn't ruffle the feathers of somebody else. I love this saying, which is it's easy to be an angel when someone's not ruffling your feathers. And that's really true. So be careful, because the other aspect of this is, and you may be thinking this yourself, you may be thinking, well, hang on a minute. How does this work with unconscious bias? So my gut might tell me, oh, I've got to be careful of this person, but is that coming from intuition or is that coming from past behavior? Now, here's the rub with your gut intuition. It can be coming from unconscious bias. And what I mean by that is if you had a particularly bullying, nasty maths teacher, for example, remember back in the day when they used to throw chalkboard rubbers at your head? Oh yes, they did that, and they used to run their nails down the blackboard as well. They did that too, and they also. I used to have those desks with inkwells. Oh yes, I did. And I'm not Victorian. I just was at a school that thought it was, and we had inkwells that had ink in. We had fountain pens that we dipped, and we had pink blotting paper. I was amused as a child, and the teacher used to get you to put your fingers. Anyway, this is abuse. Put your fingers in the desk and then whack the lid down. And if you didn't have the sense to get your fingers out of the way, it hurt. Now, I always did get my fingers out of the way, but many kids didn't. Moving on quickly. Anyway, if you had a maths teacher that would humiliate you at the board, bring you up to the front and ask you how to do some kind of like times table-y thing without singing, 1 2 is 2, 2 2 is 4, 3 2. Anyway, that's the only way I can do it. It's exactly the same as the alphabet. I have to sing my way all the way through the alphabet to find out what the next letter is. So, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. N goes after M, I hope. Anyway, so I was clearly amused as a child. So you've got this teacher, and this teacher has been really abusive to you. You know the guy, he had round glasses, smelt of mothballs, had that really horrible kind of like suit jacket, and drove a convertible sports car TR7, if you're old enough to remember that. Then you meet someone who has the same smell, that mothball smell, has round glasses, your gut is going to go, there was abuse here, this man's really bad, because that's what it's programmed to do. And up until the age of 7, you have a theta brainwave. So you're picking everything up as a kind of like a sponge. So you're picking all of this information up. So if you have been programmed to believe a certain thing or have a certain thought about, somebody, or somebody reminds you of somebody, or if you were brought up in a home that like really hated a particular nation of people, or if you're brought up in a home that disrespected women or something, I don't know, there's going to be a gut reaction to anyone who reminds you of a person who is hurtful towards you. So let me just caveat that, because I think I've sent you down a misunderstanding here. It doesn't mean if you had a racist father that you are going to have gut instincts against, say, for example, French people or black people or whatever. That's not what I mean. You will have a gut instinct against people who remind you of your father. Okay, so because unless you have experienced a significant problem with that person, that gut instinct can't be given to you. It has to be reactive. So it's a different thing. So it could be that your father was just like this bigoted arse, and then you want to avoid bigoted arsey people. Okay, so hopefully I've explained that properly, because the unconscious bias is a reaction to traumatic situations and experiences. Okay, good. Sometimes when you're waxing lyrical, you kind of go, hang on a minute, that sounds a bit wrong. Okay, so rewind. So the reason why I say all of this, because now you're probably thinking, good, then I can't trust my gut instinct, because my gut instinct might make me think I don't like somebody that is actually perfectly fine. And the problem is when you have a bias against somebody that you don't really know, but they remind you of somebody that caused trauma in your past, then what can happen is you gather allyship. In order to prove that you're right, say, for example, if this is somebody who's a work colleague or part of a community, you might go to other people in the community and go, something about him that I don't know, I've got a bad feeling about him. And then that person who never had a bad feeling about that person before suddenly goes, oh, yeah, I know what you mean. There is something a little bit weird. You know what? Eyes too close together. Yeah, eyes too close together. My mum used to say, oh, be careful of people whose eyes are too close together. What the hell does that even mean? And so then they go, oh, yeah. And then more people. Then before you know it, A person who hasn't even spoken said boo to a goose. Everyone is suddenly worried about because one person felt that they had a funny gut instinct about them. Now, some people give off shut down, closed out, I'm unlovable vibes. And these vibes come from your limiting belief. And vibes can make other people an actor in your story. This is deep. Here we go. So, what I mean by that is, say, for example, you think that you're unlovable. So you give out a vibe that makes people go, oh, I don't really like that person. Don't know what it is, but there's something a bit weird about them. Then you will self-perpetuate unlovability. Those people who could have loved you will not love you, and they will suddenly become actors in the story that you're telling yourself about your lack of lovability. So I was in a special needs group at school. So I decided I was stupid. And it was funny, I was thinking about this morning, about, I had a test for dyslexia, and a letter came back after the test saying that the test came back that I wasn't dyslexic, but it also said that Somerset County Council do not believe in dyslexia. And I was thinking, this is interesting, isn't it? I had a pre-idea perception, because when that letter came through, it was like, see, you're just not applying yourself, you're lazy. So this idea of being stupid, because I knew I wasn't lazy, but this idea of being stupid and lazy turned me into a workaholic, because I was determined to prove it wrong. However, that creates a chip on your shoulder that anyone who speaks to you like you're stupid, you will get your defensive response, probably in excess of what is warranted for the behaviour. But there will be a type of person who is what I would call spelling police. There'll be a type of person who likes, because their archetype is of a teacher, who wants to teach you how to do something. And they will trigger the shit out of you because they are pulling out this idea that you're stupid. Do you see where I'm going with this? So because of that, you will be defensive the minute you meet that person, and then they will become actors in your story, where because you're defensive, they will try and help you in order to break down your defensiveness, and that's the worst thing they can do. So for many of us, we don't realise that when someone puts up a wall of defence, it comes from a limiting belief. And when you are highly intuitive, you can see the defence, but you can't always see the cause. So you get up on the wall of defence to have a look. So in other words, you send out your solar plexus, you frisk them. What are you defensive about? What's the matter? Are you all right? You're a bit defensive. What are you defensive about? And that person is going, oh my God, and putting up bricks because you're sitting on the wall of their defensiveness. And then you start to think that there's something wrong with you because you're like, why does everyone hate me? And it's not that. It's because sometimes we don't realise that by being highly intuitive, we can see through somebody's defence, but we can't always see the limiting belief. Okay, so before you kind of now think, oh my God, I wish I didn't have a gut instinct because this sounds terrible. Balance your gut instinct with your heart intuition, and we solve the problem entirely, completely done. So when you frisk someone and you get a sense of, it must come up with a better term than that, I think. When you sense someone, when you're reading someone's energy, how's that? When you're reading somebody's energy, and you get a sense of them that makes you go, ooh, gut instinct, don't like that person, don't know why, don't like them. Maybe it's because they remind you of your ex-partner who was a cheating ratbag. Maybe it's because they remind you of an old teacher. Maybe it's because they're a ratbag and you really do need to keep away from them. When you become curious, you open your heart center. So become curious as to why you don't like them. And the gut instinct is reacting. And it's like unveiling the layers of an onion. You go, so how does this work? You go, I have a gut instinct. Now, this is curiosity is without words, but I have to give words in order to demonstrate. And you may get words. So here we go. Onion. Curious. I have a gut instinct that that person's a bit of a shit. Curious. Why do I have that gut instinct? What's going on there? Curious. Oh, they really remind me of someone I dated when I was 15. Curious. Oh yeah, that guy was a really awful person. Went around telling all of his friends that I was fidgeting. I was 15, so that's probably true, and I should have been. Curious. Is there something I can do by meeting this person to heal a pain? Because here's the other thing that the gut instinct does, is it looks for people who can heal something. So in other words, have you ever kind of gone, God, I'm dating the same person with a different face. Oh God, why is it I always meet, a particular type of woman who turns into a bully? God, why am I always getting bullied by a particular type of person in a working environment that shows up in exactly the same way in every single place I work? And it's because if we have had small t trauma, something has happened, we want to heal the hurt inside of ourselves because we don't want to have it stored in our body. You don't want it in the fascia of your system. You don't want it in your body. So if you're still holding on to an old grievance or an old pain, you will meet that person again like Groundhog Day, not the same person, but like Groundhog Day, you will meet that person again so you can heal it, behave differently. This is why with PTSD, we replay things and replay things and replay things. So the subconscious mind can get you to change the outcome. And through hypnotherapy or counseling or whatever, when you change the meaning of what happened, you change the outcome of what happened, which means it unfolds itself and is released. So your gut brain can attract people, see people, seek people that remind you or are like, so that you can heal something. That maybe the same situation comes up again, but you play a different part, that you play a different character. So by balancing your gut intuition, I have a bad feeling about this. Rather than using that and just going, right, first course of action, avoid, become curious, engage your heart brain, and we'll talk more tomorrow about how to do that. Engage your heart brain so that you can become really clear on what this is about. Some things are just get the hell out of there. Do not hire this person. Walk, leave, quit this job. Some things are just really like go. Sometimes when you're walking down the street, you have a gut instinct to cross the road. Do not stay on the road to find out whether or not you're going to get mugged and then go, see, I did get mugged. Don't do that. Listen to your gut instinct, react on your gut instinct, but become curious. And it might be that you're like, oh, this person is going to rob me of money and they remind me of this and da, 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 da. Okay, I'm not going to go down that road, so I'm not going to do that. And by walking away, we've cleared it because we didn't walk away last time. That can also be the answer too. Cool. Okay, so that's a heck of a lot of information. Lovely to see you all. I've just glanced down. I can see all your faces now because I was looking at the camera before. So lovely to see you all. I hope that that makes sense to you. We will come back at 5:30 to have a little chat on Clubhouse. Put any questions that you've got onto Instagram when the film goes up, or DM me on Instagram. I would say Monday, we're talking about intuition and sex. So I hope that you can join us in that room. And Michael, hello, I would love you to be a mod in that room if you'd be willing to. If you can, then drop me a message. That would be really great if you're free Monday, 7:30 UK time. Mary is going to be joining us as well, as it's Rachel. So that's going to be amazing. And the lovely Sarah. And Matt is as well. But, it'd be good to have your nice male vibe, and you are super smart. So it'd be really nice to have you in the room. What else? Yes, so those two things are coming up. We're back again 8:15 tomorrow, and your homework, if you choose to accept it, is just to walk around and read who you feel drawn to and who you feel repelled by, and become curious about it. Sounds simple. I'm sure it will be. All right, catch you later. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Appreciate it. Catch you again at 5:30 if you can make it. All right, you take care now. Have a lovely day.